or us all thinking about ourselves, et cetera, et cetera. Or the municipality last night apparently tying in their votes for LaFrance and Bronson. So we'll probably have a runoff, right? So you're thinking of all these different aspects of things as a self-consciousness, municipal self-consciousness, Anchorage, thinking about itself, etc., right? It's acknowledging, right? I am as I see others see me. You see how that works? Who am I? I need to get feedback from other people for me to have a sense of who I am. Without this social relationship, my self-consciousness disappears. What would I be like on a deserted island? How long would I be able to maintain myself? There are people that have been imprisoned by the Vietnamese. They're in a cell for many years, and yet they've been able to maintain their self sanity by using different techniques and so on. There is, for self-consciousness, another self-consciousness. It has come outside itself. So when I'm seeing that young lady in the bar, this is totally fake, by the way. I don't go to bars, and so I was just making that whole sketch up, right? But whenever you're seeing someone else and you're trying to meet them for the first time, you want to present yourself as a particular self, but you're also aware that that person is a self-consciousness and is probably trying to present his or herself as a self. This is where we get identity, right? The whole business of what your identity is a dialectic, that's going on between multiple individuals, right? And so in a sense, when I'm thinking about what that other person is thinking, I've come outside of myself because I'm trying to put myself into that person's consciousness and think about what they're thinking, right? This has a twofold significance. First, self-consciousness has lost itself, because once I've put myself into what I think is your self-consciousness, I'm not thinking about my self-consciousness anymore, right? I'm thinking about yours, right? So I've lost myself, for it finds itself as another being. Second, it has thereby done away with the other, for it does not see the other either as the essential being, but it itself in the other. So if I'm trying to imagine what you're thinking, I'm not really thinking what you're thinking. I'm imagining you're thinking what I think you're thinking. Right? So I'm not really getting you, nor am I really me anymore, right? Once I've done this, right? And hence itself a second double sense. First, it must set out to do away with the other independent being in order thereby to become certain of itself as the essential being. I don't really understand what he's trying to say here, but because it doesn't sound like you're actually trying to kill the other, I'm trying to get to know the other person. But I think what he's trying to say is that in imagining what you're thinking, I'm not really getting to the real you. I'm in a sense replacing the real you with my imaginary understanding of what you are thinking, right? I think you're thinking what I think you're thinking, right? And that fools me. It really does. You have to really be aware that that's not possible, really. I can't really know what you're thinking. You might be thinking, gee, I could have stayed home and had breakfast instead of listening to this crap, or I don't know. I don't know what you're thinking as I'm thinking, but I think you're thinking what I'm thinking as we're going, right? Okay, so this double sense, doing away with its double-sensed otherness, is equally a double sense returned into itself. For first, through doing away, it gets itself back. for it becomes once more equal to itself through doing away with its otherness. Can you imagine reading that in German? Second, however, it no less gives back to the other self-consciousness to the latter again, for it had itself in the other. It does away with this being it has in the other, thus letting the other go free again. This movement of self-consciousness in its relation to another self-consciousness has been presented in this way now as the doing of the one. This is just me thinking it, right? But this doing of the one has itself the twofold significance of being as much its doing as the doing of the other. Because you're doing the same thing at the same time. For the other is no less independent, shut up within itself, and there is nothing in it that is not owing to itself. The first self-consciousness does not have the object before it, as the latter, to begin with, is merely for desire, but an independent object existing for itself, over which therefore it has of itself no power, unless the object does with itself what self-consciousness does with it. The movement is thus in all respects the double movement of both self-consciousnesses. Each sees the other one do the same as it does. Each does itself what it demands of the other, and so does what it does, only inasmuch as the other does the same. A one-sided doing would be unavailing, because what is intended should occur can come about only through both. Right? The doing is therefore double-sensed, not only inasmuch as it is doing as much to itself as to the other, but also inasmuch as it is undividedly as much the doing of the other, the one, as the other. Right? In this movement, we see the process repeat itself, which presented itself as the play of forces. He loves that expression, play of forces. But in consciousness, what in the earlier process was for us is here for the extremes themselves. The center is self-consciousness, etc. So that's how this should be read, I think, right? And so what you're getting here is not the kind of thing that Kant would have written, right? This is a description of a play, of an activity that's going on, and he's trying to describe the way our minds think. And as a result, the phenomena of this mind, right? What is the phenomena of being a mind? How does that actually occur, right? And so he's describing it moment by moment. And of course, it changes really from one situation to another. In a sense, this feels like a template that you can use to talk about how self-consciousness works, either as I hinted, myself thinking about whether or not I should eat the Snickers bar or not. I have an argument within my own mind, right? There's multiple consciousnesses in my own mind that are arguing with one another. You want to live forever. You shouldn't eat this crap. On the other hand, I really like this, and so on. I also mentioned Monday, the biology of a person. You know, when you're in the bar and you see the person and the person comes in and they're dressed a certain way. Because when we put on, believe it or not, I actually think about what I'm going to wear before coming. Because I want to look casual, but at the same time I want to look not homeless, right? You know, that kind of thing. You know, so I'm not wearing ties anymore. You know, some people wear bow ties all the time, and I think that's kind of interesting because, I couldn't wear a bow tie. I have a bow tie. It's a Jamison bow tie, by the way. Professor Mueller bought it for me when he was in Scotland. It's kind of neat. But if I put it on, you wouldn't have seen it, you know, because I'm trying to imitate Dumbledore, or maybe Gandalf, if you prefer. Either way, right? But I mentioned the clothing, and this is an interesting issue. Did anybody go to the event that was advertised as "My Little Black Dress Doesn't Mean Yes"? Did anyone see those? Yes? Did you go? No. Oh, shoot. I'd love to find somebody that actually went and found out what happened at that event. Because just reading that, I'm thinking, Now wait a minute. That's an interesting question. On the one hand, it certainly does mean yes, depending on how you take it. For example, if you were in Saudi Arabia, and I love this, there was a picture on the internet, who knows, I imagine it's real, but apparently some Saudi prince took a picture of all the women that he had with him in some Western location where they were taking pictures of one another with the backdrop. I forget what it was, but he had like about 7 or 8 women, posing, and every single one of them was wearing the complete.
No, go ahead. I'll wait until you're done with your thoughts.
Well, the complete burqa, with the only thing visible is this little bit here, and so you just had all these, not quite Darth Vaders, but they're all standing there, and you think, this family picture doesn't make sense as a family picture. This guy, the photographer, doesn't realize, what did you just take a picture of? There's no differentiation among all these individuals that are all standing there. What were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to talk about the little black dress. I mean, my argument that would be it's an objective yes. I mean, it's not a yes in every case, but it
depends on the context.
But it's a yes for someone almost absolutely in every circumstance, but that depends on that person, right? So it is a yes.
It depends on that person and the
just
context, I think.
It's just not a yes for everyone.
It's more complex.
Yeah.
Right? What puzzles me is when you think, so many times, I remember years ago, a lot of the migrants, refugees from the Middle East were in Germany for New Year's Eve. And the Germans, being Germans, were walking around in, I think it was Munich, maybe, was it Munich, was it Cologne, whatever. It actually probably happened in a couple cities where they were having their big festival for the New Year's, and people are there dressed the way modern young Germans would dress, right? And there were a bunch of groups of Middle Easterners that basically...
Mostly Syrians. Was this in 2015?
Yes.
I was in Germany during 2015, and we were advised by my company not to bring females from the company to the train stations past 6 p.m. And if we were going to, not to leave them there by themselves, even just to step away and go to the bathroom, because it was happening quite frequently with gang rapes.
Exactly. And you think, now, as far as I understand it, this was all Middle Eastern groups who've moved into Germany, basically are used to the idea that women cover themselves completely, plus are not alone, are always with a male escort, family probably, right? And as a result, they are totally untrained how they can react to a woman who's displaying herself in a much more open manner, as Western Europeans do. I mean, that's just an amazing cultural difference between that. And all these young men are essentially not trained and literally seem to lose self-control when they see women who are dressed in little black dresses. Yes? Does that make sense? I think it's a natural biological response to the female form that males take. Is this fair to say? Anybody disagree? But you are trained how you respond to that stimuli. So here's the situation. You've got Middle Easterners who have grown up and not been trained how to behave when they see women dressed that way, and Westerners who are actually trained not to behave inappropriately, because the other answer to that, my little black dress doesn't mean yes, would be males being taught that just because you see a female wearing an outfit that is very attractive to you doesn't mean that you can do things that are inappropriate. And what is inappropriate? Well, that's something that's socially constructed that you have to be trained to understand. So we're looking at a situation I should have gone to find out what was going on in that. That would have been neat to discover. But I bring that up because there's aspects to our social interaction with one another that are not simply under our control. Your biological response, for example, is something that we'd love to think we could control it. I mean, that's the Zen master, right? You know, walks in the cold snow but doesn't get cold feet, you know, and so on, right? You know, that you have absolute control over yourself. Pardon?
Wim Hof.
Wim Hof?
Yeah, he's like pretty known for like being able to like control his physiology in like really extreme environments. He's got this breathing technique that he goes through. I mean, I've never really looked into it that much, but he's all over YouTube.
Wim Hof.
He was like 5 years ago.
He does a lot of stuff like